here.
We're comedy duo Pink Pony. Welcome to Out Chicago on WCPT.
And welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Duff here. Ellen Miller here.
We had a lot of activity
on the phone that's going on over there. It's very, very exciting. The novel Silent Drums tells the true story of Bob LeBlanc, a decorated gay Vietnam War combat Marine, and his personal journey through war, cancer, and 3 attempts by the Marines to have him dishonorably discharged. And joining us on the phone right now is author Pam Daniels and our Staff Sergeant Bob LeBlanc. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Scott.
Okay, so, how did you two meet, Pam?
Well, Bob, believe it or not, on Facebook, 7 years ago this month, was advertising for somebody to write his story, and I had just come out and was looking for a gig. A friend of a friend who is also transgender and knew Bob hooked us up, and I couldn't believe it. Bob, you had your phone number on Facebook. And the first thing I told him is, you have to take that off Facebook.
Yes.
Hello.
Well, Bob, you're lucky you got somebody like Pam to give you a call.
That's true.
Right. So, Bob, what was your experience like in the military? I mean, you were serving under the, of course, huge Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and under very, very extreme circumstances as being the Vietnam War.
Well, actually, I wasn't serving during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Don't Ask, Don't Tell did not start yet.
Right. You in the Vietnam War, correct, Bob?
Yes, I spent 2 separate combat tours in Vietnam, and I was wounded severely at the end of my second tour. We moved on from there.
Wounded is an understatement, people. He was actually blown up 16 days before the entire 4th Marine Regiment of the 3rd Marine Division was leaving Vietnam for good in October of 1969. He was thrown up into the air, landed flat on his back. He was paralyzed from the neck down, had 2 heart attacks on the way to the USS Sanctuary hospital ship. Spent 3 months in severe traction, totally immobilized from the neck down to heal the bruised spinal cord at C2 and C3. All of this is in the book, of course. What he endured for that Purple Heart of his is unbelievable.
Wow, that's incredible. So, yes, that is the understatement that you were injured.
Yeah.
You were very. So, what was it like? I mean, yes, of course, this was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but homosexuals were not allowed to serve openly in the military. What was that experience like for you?
Of course, the operative word there is openly.
Right.
Gays did definitely serve in the military. There's no doubt about it. In Vietnam, it was a very closetly, close-knit community, and it seems like, we all knew each other, and we all had our time that we would try to get together and talk, because it was difficult. You spend over 2 years in a combat zone. It's very difficult to first of all, have any sort of relationships, because if you remember, in Vietnam, the people rotated, the units did not rotate. It's one of the few wars where, like World War II, the whole unit would move together. Mm-hmm. In Vietnam, individuals moved, and so it was very difficult to maintain communications with friends that you knew that were sympathetic to your beliefs and that sort of thing. So it was extremely difficult, lonely and depressing, and it just added to the PTSD that most combat veterans have. So you have the combination of the PTSD, and then you have the combination of the depression in which you're suppressing your feelings and that you're gay, and at the same token, you think you're doing the right thing, and then your nation says you're not doing the right thing because you're not the right kind of person.
So horrible.
Well, just to interject here quickly, too, Bob's ambulance ride from Andrews Air Force Base in October of '69 to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where he would be in traction for those 3 months, it was spat upon by anti-war demonstrators. One of the things that I'm hoping for is to get Bob a pardon for this ridiculous conviction. In fact, it was so stupid and ridiculous, the judge at the special court-martial in 1975 refused to punish Bob, and the prosecutor who prosecuted the case told Bob afterwards that if this bigoted major who brought the case wouldn't sign his re-enlistment papers, he, the prosecutor, would. And I'll let Bob pick up from there.
How this whole thing started, a Marine at Camp Pendleton in 1965, when I was getting ready for my first tour in Vietnam for combat training, and asked me how he could get out of going to Vietnam because he didn't want to go. And I said, well, just tell him you're gay. And he went and told him that he was gay and he didn't want to go to Vietnam, and he didn't go to Vietnam. But he also implicated me because I don't know if you thought I didn't want to go, but I did want to go at the time. And that's how it all started. And NIS, pulled me in, and I had to take 3 polygraph exams, and and it's so they asked me, this is so strange, they asked me if I was a faggot. They didn't say are you a homosexual. They asked me if I was a faggot. Of course, my interpretation of the word faggot was an extremely derogatory term, and it was it's almost like, if I was a black person, I'd call you the N-word,
Oh, absolutely. And of course, so when you answered that no, you're not, you were answering truthfully, because in your mind, that was a derogatory term.
In my mind, I was absolutely telling the truth. And anyway, I took 3 separate polygraphs and passed.
Wow.
I write about that in the book. It's a whole chapter. In fact, we even have the actual names of the investigators involved, so I named them Agents Red Tie, Blue Tie, and No Tie. And it's one of the few funny, not so funny chapters in the book. But what this man has endured is just off the charts. By the way, now U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, who in 1975 was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, he, for the first time in American history, issued a restraining order against the Marines when this bigoted major tried one more time to throw Bob out of the Marine Corps for allegedly being homosexual. And that's what those demonstration videos were all about. That you saw, I think I heard one of you reference them earlier in the show today. That's what those demonstrations were all about. The gay community in Southern California mobilized on Bob's behalf. And Bob, what was your answer?
Well, my answer was, and this is the how we generated from one step to the other, and the other step was, of course, don't ask, don't tell. But my comeback each and every time is, it's simply none of your business. I mean, if you had the proof, why are we having this discussion?
Right.
From 1965 to 75, Bob had the guts to tell them it's none of their business.
Wow.
That's on the record.
Wow.
That's all on the record. So I had what we call 2 admin review discharge boards that proved that I was homosexual. And at an admin review discharge board is much different than a court of law because hearsay is admissible. And they couldn't even prove it under hearsay evidence.
Yeah, and you said prove. They couldn't prove that he was homosexual. And
they couldn't prove it. Even with hearsay evidence, they couldn't prove it. So the major at Marine Barracks Long Beach, who was absolutely homophobic, in my opinion.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that was the prevailing sentiment at the time.
Yeah, I think I can back that up as a journalist.
And he actually called me into his office, and I believe it was the executive officer standing outside. I could see a figure standing outside his door with the door slightly ajar, and he tried to aggravate me to do something disrespectfully towards him. And I never lost my temper. I never lost control. I always knew what I had to do. And he would call me, I know you're a faggot. I don't care what anyone is. I know this, and he'll call you, So he was trying to aggravate me to be disrespectful to him so he could
use it against
charges on, and he never did succeed. So
this major is doing this, by the way, 5 years after Bob is decorated with a Navy commendation with a Combat D for valor by full bird colonel, who also helped him get into the MPs in Quantico, Virginia, after he recovered at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Now, Bob had earned the respect of 2 bird colonels during his tours in Vietnam. And this bigoted major comes along, and he's going to drum this hero out of the Marines?
What was his problem, this major? I mean, what do you think?
Well, let me give you a little background about this particular major. He spent almost 20 years in the military, and he retired as a major. He was a administrative officer up until the point that he was assigned at Marine Barracks Long Beach in California, where I was stationed. And it was his duty. He thought it was his duty. Matter of fact, he told me. I don't have to think he thought it. He told me it was his duty to rid the Marine Corps of people like you.
Wow.
And so he was. He had no ribbons on his chest. Whenever he took pictures with other Marines who were getting awards, he would stand sideways
so you
while
couldn't
the
see.
other Marine was facing the camera, because he was I believe he was embarrassed because he only had a couple of ribbons. And here are all these young men in their 20s with combat ribbons and Purple Hearts, and he doesn't have anything. But to show you about the character of the man, or what the Marine Corps thought of him, he spent 20-some years in the Marine Corps. He could not get past major, and he never was promoted.
And, oh, by the way, it's customary in all branches of the service, sorry, Bob, when you do retire, they bump you up a grade.
Right.
They didn't even do that for this guy.
Wow.
He had an inferiority complex, and he was filled with rage and hate, and he took it out on you.
Yeah. Well, we are speaking with...
And it's on the record.
Yeah.
By the way, the record of his adjudication is in the book, the actual copy.
We're speaking with Pam Daniels, who is the author of The Silent Drums, which tells the true story of Bob LeBlanc, who's also on the line right now, decorated Vietnam veteran who was gay. He's been tried to dishonorably discharge him for 3 times. It's an incredible story. I see how you how you would be compelled to write this book about this, and it's incredible. It sounds like all of these incredible resources that you have available to you. So, Pam, you're saying that you have the actual documents as a part of the book?
Oh, yes. By the way, I spent 3 decades in broadcast news, mostly radio. Journalism is my profession.
It is in your blood.
Yes, and I'm particularly good at investigative reporting. So when Bob started telling me this stuff, and he sent me a box about 6 inches tall of documents, and I started going through this. And when I saw Anthony Kennedy's name on a restraining order, I said, wait a minute.
Don't I know him from somewhere?
Yeah, that name's familiar.
Yep.
He was a newly appointed Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge by then President Ford. They were Republicans. Which I am too, by the way.
Well,
Bob, doesn't it give you great, though, hope when you see that Ash Carter was named Secretary of the Army earlier this year by President Obama?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you must really think, wow, we've come a long way compared to what you had to deal with in the 70s.
I can imagine what this particular major is thinking right now.
if he's thinking at all.
It also covers marriage equality, too. And one of the things that bothers me as an activist, the kids today think that because we've won marriage equality, that the fight for equality is over, and it's barely begun.
We know that.
Yes.
Bob's story is the backstop to that.
Yeah, we talk about that on this show all the time, and we don't have to. We need to remind people that it's not over. And every day, sadly, there's another reason that proves to us that the fight must go on, and we must not be neglectful in our fight.
I want everybody to know also, as the author, I'm sharing half of my royalties with Bob and Julio because they deserve as much as I do. They live this.
Wow.
Julio's been a devoted partner and now Bob's husband and sole caregiver for 20 years.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Wow. It's fantastic. It's just incredible. The story, it sounds larger than life. It sounds, we didn't even begin to talk about, you're dealing with cancer because of your exposure to Agent Orange. It's truly a harrowing feat, and we want to thank you so much for your service and your dedication to your country. It's to our country.
Yes, thank you for your service, Bob, indeed.
Well, I really don't need to be thanked because I did what I wanted to do, and I wanted to serve. At the time, I believed, today I would say I believed the lies that I was told, during Nixon administration and et cetera, when they were telling us that we had lectures on, we want to stop communism. We don't want it to trigger down into Vietnam, and then it will go to this country, and then it will go to this country. And I believed all that stuff that they were telling me, and now I see that Vietnam is our best trading partner, and it really is about the money. It has nothing to do with, communism, because we deal with communism every day. Look at China. Look at Vietnam. Look at all the other communist countries that we do business with.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. That's true.
You're very right. But again, so I do want to thank you for your service. I especially during that time when people were coming back from Vietnam and not greeted with open arms, as you were saying, his ambulance was spat upon as he was going. It's hopefully we have changed opinions and changed minds about what happened over there.
Yeah, this is the time of if you remember Lenny Maklovich, who was a friend of mine, and he was on Time magazine when he came out as a homosexual. Of course, he was discharged, and but my approach was different, and it was none of your business, and then it led on to, I think, the route of don't ask, don't tell, and then and that process was over, and then now we have transgender people serving openly.
Yep.
So everybody throws a grain of sand in the bucket, and eventually that bucket will fill.
Yep.
And it already is. It already is. And your story is extremely compelling. And thank you so much for taking time out today to be on the show. Silent Drums is available on Amazon. Pam Daniels and Bob LeBlanc, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having us. And you can visit Bob's homepage, www.staffsergeantleblanc.com, which has all the links also.
Great.
Beautiful.
Great.
Keep up the fight, guys.
Keep up the fight, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back is the final thrilling moments of Out Chicago right here on WCPT 820, where facts matter.